In the beginning, our hope for the Sapphire Theater was that we could create a nonprofit that would be sustainable and that would be effective in improving the culture of the community. That we could create art and make a difference through the art that we were creating.
I was a founding board member, and it was very exciting because, first of all, I had never been a founding board member of an organization before. So it was interesting to see something from literally the ground up.
In 2006 and 2008, the city was developing in a great way along cultural lines and was focusing on the arts and culture through Mayor Bart Peterson and Brian Payne at CICF and the Cultural Trail. There were a lot of great things that were happening in the Indianapolis culture. And we also were looking for a mid-sized city where artists could afford to have a reasonable quality of life for the work that they were doing.
In 2008, we launched the Sapphire Theatre Company with a production of Lysistrata. We did a very fast-paced modern adaptation in the Circle Center Mall. So we've always been mobile. We took over a space in the Circle Center Mall. It was a way to illuminate what was happening at that time with a story that had been told through the ages.
Back in 2006, when Bonnie and Dave were thinking about launching this in Indianapolis. I don't even know if they had a name at the time, but the concept that they had would be a natural addition to what was going on in Indianapolis at the time.
Lysistrata brought comedy and levity to a very difficult issue and brought it up to the community in a way to discuss. And so that's how we started Sapphire, with that intention, and that's what we've done ever since.
Sapphire performs arts with purpose. We're a mobile arts organization that's innovative, creative, and that we do things that people have never seen before. And we bring art to people who otherwise wouldn't get a chance to experience it.
The special thing about Sapphire is that there is that purpose behind it, and that they want people to leave with something, with knowledge, with an experience, with something more than just an entertaining night.
What I love the most about the theater is that it is based in human experience, and it can place that human experience on stage in a way that reflects to an audience what we need to deal with in a way that's safe, that's in a way that generates conversations, that helps us manage the most difficult aspects of being a human being in our life today.
First and foremost, we're nimble. We're a mobile theater company, which in and of itself is an innovative concept. So we're not tied to the same strictures and traditional norms that a typical, I say typical, but a more traditional theater company may have to negotiate.
One of the major things that the Sapphire does is work through partnerships. It's the way that we fulfill our mission to be connected to the community.
I'm always struck by Dave and Bonnie's ideas. It's stuff that I haven't heard before. I've heard a lot of things and a lot of projects in the city, but the things that they're doing are truly creative and truly cutting edge.
By its definition, innovation means a departure from tradition and from the norm.
You take a raw idea and we extract it, and we galvanize it, and we talk to other people in the community and see what really reverberates, right? And so we shrink it down and put it under pressure. We cut away the things that don't relate to everybody who we're trying to speak to. And then we take that essence and we put it in front of an audience and we shine light on it, and we all talk about this essential story and how it fits in our lives and what it means in our lives.
The first major production that I was a part of for Sapphire Theater was Adult Swim Indie at the Children's Museum. And that was, it was a fantastic event aimed or geared toward young professionals.
And that first year, it blew my mind how many people were there. I mean, for a first year event. That doesn't happen very often. It usually takes you a couple of years for an event to take hold and to get people to know about it. But that very first year, we had a packed house at the Children's Museums.
It was a time for adults to come out and blow off some steam and just have fun playing without really thinking about anything else.
It was very experimental because adults got to interact with a lot of the exhibits that the kids usually interact with, and then Bonnie and Dave and the production team, they added a whole other array of different activities, interactive activities, characters that were moving around and interacting with the crowd.
The city had never seen anything like it before. I had never heard about it anywhere, much less in Indianapolis.
We got a call from the Trial Academy for the U.S. Public Defenders. It was an amazing week of actors portraying difficult situations for defenders to rally around and dealing with the nuances of cases and the nuances of personalities. It was really gratifying to be able to do that on a national scale. This was a U.S. court system program, and to be able in Indianapolis to say, yeah, we've got the talent, and not only do we have it, but they're ready, they're prepared, and they're gonna blow you out of the water. They did.
Our partnership with the Harrison Center with pre-enactment was a great example of taking the fast and simplified version of theatrical design and applying it to a streetscape, a 3.5 block stretch of 16th Street in downtown Indianapolis, and activating that space as if it has already been developed in a just and equitable way for both the neighbors who live there and the businesses who function there.
The long story short is demonstrating what a modern urban neighborhood looks like. So modernization without gentrification, without the negative side effects of gentrification. We actually went into the neighborhood and talked to the people who had lived in that neighborhood for decades.
We worked with not only through the Harrison Center that was the producer of that whole event, but we worked with all the different theaters, we worked with the community members.
We gave voice to those residents, and that's one thing that Sapphire is all about, is not only bringing art to folks who may not have a chance to experience it, but giving those folks a voice through the arts.
Picture This was created as a tool to get people talking about subjects that were scary in an authentic way that generated conversations that could lead them to actual information.
We present scenarios, something really sticky's happening, and we freeze the action, and the characters turn out to the audience, at which point that's when the real learning happens, because the audience starts to coach the characters directly, and what the audience is learning is how to talk to one another when there's issues and not have to go to management or HR every time there's a problem. We're starting to settle things at a much lower level.
Facilitators and subject experts jump in and start guiding a conversation immediately with the audience. And we start to problem solve.
If you just sit in front of people in a classroom and just lecture for an hour about a topic, you may or may not come out of that session with some knowledge. But when you're engaged and you're entertained and it's interactive, those messages have a much better chance of sticking in your brain.
The actors are cued in as to how they should respond in character. They do a great job of understanding from character, how can I help this learning happen? The research has shown that once you get emotion attached to learning, so if the audience gets a little angry at our character in that scene, whole brain lights up. And these synapses that form around what you're learning actually form deeper into the brain, so it's learning that really sticks.
It combines role play, social issue theater, and group problem solving, and starts a conversation that is risk-free, because basically as the actors, we can absorb any challenge without being the ones that, if you handle that challenge in a less than ideal way, there's no risk. We're not damaged.
I really enjoyed that the Sapphire is unique in that we take all of those theatrical techniques and talents and apply them not only to theater productions but to other areas outside the theater. whether it's museum exhibits or public art. When we get to do the historic preservation and the historic restoration projects, it's something that existed before I was here and hopefully will exist for many years and decades after we're gone. The Fowler Theater project was a great partnership, and we did decorative painting and plaster restoration and some custom construction, and we breathed new life into a 1941 Art Deco movie house north of Lafayette. And it's now a huge, important part of that community. Another Sapphire project is the Indiana State House. We did decorative painting and plaster restoration for the offices of the Attorney General. It's scenic art and it's custom construction to create an environment that has the impression of justice, that inspires the kids who go through that space and the businesses and individuals who cross the paths of those offices to know that justice will be done here and that this is a building where important things are going to happen. I strive to be an artist by being an artisan, by paying attention to the details, by striving for perfection, and by trying to achieve something beyond what is expected. Something transformative, something transcendent, something beautiful.
In 2015, when we heard about the onset of moral injury as something that was coming onto the scene that explained why so many veterans were choosing suicide, we took that issue and we said, we can do something. Indiana has a huge military population. So how can we take the challenges that that community is facing, put it on stage with the programming we have, and create a community conversation that actually helps the people that are suffering under this and their families and the community at large.
Rebuilding Home focuses on healing that moral injury and establishing a new normal. There is no such thing as normal once you go into the service, but what strategies and what kind of conversations can we have and what sort of information can we share to establish a new normal?
There was a man who came in, a young man, and then an older man came with him. I don't know who they were, but it seemed like they were buddies or relatives, or maybe an older veteran and a younger veteran. They walked out together and I could see that they were talking and that they had started a conversation, that somehow being able to see how that scene might play out for other people and the challenges of that allowed them to have a conversation that hadn't been bridged before.
We're producing Romeo and Juliet because at its heart, it's a story about teen violence and teen suicide.
The teens in Indiana are the most likely of teens in any state to say that they will commit suicide, and they are the second most likely to do it. The actors portray those characters, portray the scenes that we love and remember, the balcony scene and everything else, but then there's an opportunity for teenagers in Indiana to actually talk to the most famous suicide couple. And our facilitators who are trained in that area will bridge a conversation between Indianapolis teens and Romeo and Juliet. And if I can do something with my art form to make a real lasting impact in the lives of the people in the community in which I choose to live, that's fulfilling. That's what I want to do. And that's what I feel an obligation to do.
School-age children are one of the most vulnerable populations, but yet have experienced these horrific tragedies that stem from bullying. And so anytime that we bring that awareness and that knowledge and that information to those students and to the teachers and the schools and the classrooms, we're saving lives.
We did this anti-bullying show where a little kid was getting bullied. Afterwards, a little girl, first grader, came up and she said to me, she held my hand, kind of shocked me, and she said, what that girl went through, meaning my actor, I deal with that. That happens to me, she said. That happens to me. But I don't know what to do because it's my stepmom. She saw something on stage, she brought it up, and we were able to help. There's there's no better example of what we do than that. And every other example is just a different version of that.